this fourth-round tie against Bournemouth. But Borough lost at Notts County in the fifth round, and by March Allison had gone. Jack Charlton returned until the end of the season, and then the popular Willie Madron took over as manager. But Middlesbrough were in decline. They only escaped relegation in 1985 by winning at Shrewsbury on the last day of the season. And here they went out of the FA Cup to 4th Division Darlington in a third-round replay. The demise of what had been a respectable First Division club had spread to the supporters. Crowds at Ayresome Park slumped to 4,000, and the following season Borough slid into the 3rd Division, where they had spent one season in the 60s. Even the return of local favourite Tony McAndrew, who scored a consolation goal at Darlington, couldn't stop the misery. And neither at first could the new manager, Bruce Rioch, who discovered in the summer of 1986 just how bad things were off the field. Middlesbrough were bankrupt. The official receiver moved in, the staff moved out, the gates at Ayresome Park were padlocked. But Rioch refused to give up. His players continued to train elsewhere and started their 3rd Division programme by borrowing Hartlepool's ground.
With debts of £2 million, the club went 90 minutes past a deadline set for closure before being saved by the intervention of the local authority and northeastern business. On the field, a rejuvenated Archie Stevens scored twice as Middlesbrough drew 2-2 with Port Vale and began a run of 6 games without defeat that has put them top of the 3rd Division. The gates were eventually unlocked by new chairman Colin Henderson 3 days after the start of the season, and the dark days of summer will remain a painful memory for manager Bruce Rioch.
The training was going very, very well from July 17th onwards, until the time that we weren't able to gain access to Ayresome Park and our own training grounds. And we were short of materials and facilities, and we moved from one ground to another. We had great help from the local people, but we didn't actually have a base. And of course, the nearer the issue went to the start of the season, and the doubts that the football club may not exist, then obviously the more doubts that we had from the players.
Yeah, the gates were locked on July the 30th, and Bruce and myself, and especially Bruce, kept the club afloat. He's done superb, Bruce, and the players have kept in. We've stuck together, and we're getting the results for it now. But I must admit, if it hadn't have been for Bruce, I don't think the club would have survived.
Coming to the ground, and we wouldn't know where we were training on the particular morning, and we'd have to go to local colleges, school fields even to train, and it was like one bag of balls, no equipment and nothing, no bibs. It was more or less like it was at school. You take your coats off and throw them down and make a five-a-side pitch. But it was great from the coaching staff, the manager, that he kept things going, and morale was kept pretty high.
Back to it. Taken the lead with 5 minutes of the first half left.
That 66 World Cup goal is the most famous remembered by the Ayresome Park footballing public, who today are supporting the club's revival by returning in double the numbers of last season, despite local unemployment.
We're going on the right way. We're getting crowds of 7,000 now, whereas last year we were just getting crowds of 4. So it just shows you, if you're successful on the field of play, we will get the public coming back on us.
Borough won promotion as 3rd Division runners-up, and the following season, despite an FA Cup scare here against Sutton United, who finally succumbed in extra time at Ayresome Park to a Paul Kerr goal, Middlesbrough finished 3rd in Division 2 and qualified for the playoffs. They had already shown what they could do against First Division opposition when they took Everton to 3 matches in the 4th round of the FA Cup. By now, players like hard-tackling Dean Glover, high-scoring Bernie Slaven and pacey Stuart Ripley, who scored here and played regularly for England under-21s, were attracting rave reviews. Although Everton scraped through here, Borough were back in the land of the living. Ayresome Park had witnessed 2 remarkable years born out of acute adversity. Crowds that had dropped to 4,000 now averaged 4 times that figure, and well over 20,000 packed the stadium for 2 2nd Division matches. It marked the rebirth of a club steeped in tradition, and former heroes like the incomparable Wilf Mannion were among those who watched with admiration as Bruce Rioch turned what was a lost cause into a going concern.
Well, they were practically finished, as you say, but I think Rioch's done a marvellous job. He's lifted them up by the bootstrings, and he's concentrating on local talent, and he's built up a very good side. Also, you can see the discipline in the side. He's a very good manager, and they've got some very good players.
One of them was Gary Pallister, picked for England and transferred to Manchester United for £2.3 million. His defensive partner Tony Mowbray was Borough's Captain Fantastic, a born leader who epitomised the Rioch revival.
Until you lose a football club from your community, you don't realise the problems that it can cause. I mean, at the end of the day here, not just at Middlesbrough, but at all clubs across the country, a successful football club lifts the enthusiasm of the community. Those people that follow football intensely, or those people that follow football on the peripheral, they get a big kick out of their side doing well for the town. And I mean, you have to ask the Accrington Stanleys and the Southports, whose teams went out of existence, how difficult it can be.
It was difficult for Middlesbrough to beat Bradford City in the semi-final of the playoffs, but now the first leg of the final against Chelsea.
Middlesbrough need a good cross. Giversinho got a header to it! Trevor Senior, but definitely a mix-up in the Chelsea defence. Oh, waved on by Keith Hackett. Oh, that's a good ball out by Senior. Slaven's completely unmarked and he can go well forward into the penalty area. And can he pick somebody out? He got it the second time! Bernie Slaven gives Middlesbrough what could be an absolutely crucial second goal.
Slaven's 24th goal of the season put Borough in good heart for the second leg at Stamford Bridge. May the 28th, 1988 proved a momentous day in Middlesbrough history. Tony Mowbray led out a team just 90 minutes away from the First Division, less than 2 years after the club had virtually ceased to exist.
Dury with the throw for Chelsea. Nevin against the post. Ripley made himself a yard but didn't seem to appreciate it. And against the post, and then over the top from Slaven. So both goals escaped courtesy of the woodwork in the opening minutes of the game. Ripley held on, and the chip was just over the keeper's fingers, off the post, and then over the top with the goal gaping from Slaven. McLaughlin. Glover. Monster's little pass through, Dixon's touch, and Wilson to Nevin. Nevin's chip, Dury! That has opened it up. Now we really have got a playoff on our hands. Nevin has always looked dangerous taking men on, pulls back the cross, first time from Dury, and Pear stranded. 15 minutes to go. But it's a tightrope Middlesbrough walking. One slip is all it needs. Equally true, of course, of Chelsea. They only need to have a moment of casualness in their defence, and another goal for Middlesbrough would surely settle it. But it doesn't look too likely at the moment. It's Chelsea again through Nevin. Curled one. Pears saw it all the way. Bruce Rioch counting the seconds, moistening the lips. I doubt whether anything he experienced as a player is as tense as what he's been through this afternoon. A mistake now would be barely forgivable. Slaven. And there's the whistle. Middlesbrough have lost 1-0, but they win 2-1 on aggregate. They head for the first division, and Chelsea go back to the second. The goal by Gordon Durie was not enough for Chelsea. The goals that Trevor Senior and Bernie Slaven scored at Ayresome Park on Wednesday night have done the trick, and Middlesbrough's marvellous rise from the brink of insolvency to the first division in 2 seasons is complete.
Steve Pears, Dean Glover, Colin Cooper, Tony Mowbray, Gary Parkinson, Gary Pallister, Bernie Slaven, Gary Hamilton, Paul Kerr, Stuart Ripley, Alan Kernigan, Brian Laws, Mark Burke and Trevor Senior. These were the heroes who Borough fans saluted after their second successive promotion. Players who in turn acknowledged the contribution of the Teesside contingent in the 40,000 crowd on that summer Saturday in 1988. It was just 6 years since Middlesbrough had left the First Division, but there were times in the dark days of 1986 when their very survival looked unlikely. Giants like Tony Mowbray had made the dream come true. Come the following season, life returned to normal. Borough made a sound enough start come too far.
Refused to Die has swept back into the First Division in surely the most astonishing success story North East football has ever seen.
Mowbray! It's the second goal for Middlesbrough, and the captain has scored it. And Rivercombe away, and Hamilton the follow-on in, and that's a stunning goal from Gary Hamilton. And Ripley inside the area, Tomlinson, Slaven there, Bernie Slaven scores for Middlesbrough. Jubilation.
On Tuesday, Middlesbrough set off on what's becoming an annual event, a civic reception. 12 months ago, it was recognition for immediate escape from the Third Division. This year, their achievement was even greater. The fans were falling over themselves to salute a side whose indestructible spirit had won admiration far beyond Teesside. Now they could shout from the rooftops about the team who'd restored a town's football pride. There's nothing flash about these young men. They were overwhelmed by the whole town's response.
I'm pleased that we can make people happy. I think that's another part of life, isn't it? That you can achieve success, and in the process of doing it, you make a lot of people proud and feel happy. And because of all the problems here on Teesside and the North East in particular over the past few years, we've generated a lot of enthusiasm, and hopefully they can forget about one or two of their worries for a short time.
The only worry Bruce's team had was actually getting to the town hall. The coach couldn't make it any further, but skipper Tony Mowbray has led his troops through a 2-year battle for the top, and nothing could stop them savouring these moments. The Mayor of Middlesbrough, Councillor Brian Lonsborough, welcomed every player, but the fans weren't going to let their heroes disappear yet. Bruce Rioch led his men out to take another bow, the Messiah who led the borough out of the soccer wilderness. It was a special day for every Teessider.
It's brilliant to turn on the corner there at the Cleveland Centre and see the thousands and thousands of people just standing, the colour everywhere, the red and white. And to see like granddads and grandmas and little kids in pushchairs, you know, not just teenage lads, it was fantastic. Everybody showed the passion for the area and the club. Brilliant.
Some Borough fans nearly went too far. The players had climbed a few heights this season, but had they really believed they could go straight through to the first?
No, I didn't. I believed we'd maybe be about halfway. Having such a young team, we'd only been together for a year. We've done superb. You know, it's like a dream.
Now the thousands who brought the town centre to a standstill can look forward next season to Liverpool and Manchester United, not to mention Newcastle. But less than 2 years ago, they feared they'd never even see Third Division football.
Ayresome Park, the ground once graced by stars like Wilf Manny and George Hardwick and Graham Souness, was under siege, with no way in and seemingly no way out of the financial crisis. You couldn't get a season ticket, there weren't any. And though the fans rallied to the cause, what could they do in the face of debts running to £1.5 million? The players' preparation went on unhindered thanks to the generosity of local clubs like Billingham Synthonia. Borough's own Hutton Road training ground was firmly padlocked. Deadline after deadline passed. The programmes for the opening game against Port Vale rolled off the press with no team information. Then suddenly, the club hauled itself back from the brink. The consortium of businessmen headed by ICI director Colin Henderson announced the Football League had accepted a rescue package. Survival, though, still wasn't certain as skipper Tony Mowbray led his side out at Hartlepool's Victoria ground, Borough's temporary home while legal wranglings continued. For manager Bruce Rioch, it was a relief to be back in business, even in such bizarre circumstances. And 2 goals from Archie Stevens looked like giving him and the loyal Borough fans a much-needed boost after the summer's traumas. Port Vale, though, managed a draw, but any disappointment evaporated the following week when the official receiver, who'd held the power of life or death over Ayresome Park for so long, at last produced the key to Middlesbrough's future. The massive debts, most of them at any rate, had been settled, a triumph for the consortium's business acumen and determination. Now it was up to the players to do the business on the pitch. Ironically, it was Hartlepool, the opening day's landlords, who provided the opposition for Borough's official homecoming in the second leg of the Littlewoods Cup tie. Nearly 8,000 turned up for the party, and they soon had evidence of their side's youthful promise when teenage winger Stuart Ripley cracked in an unstoppable first goal. Gary Hamilton guaranteed Borough's passage into the second round. At least Bruce Rioch had something to build on.
I mean, although we trained yesterday on the pitch for about 40 minutes, the first day was today, and it's a matter of mobilising the troops again, and it will take some time for the football club to get back to normality.
Rioch and his troops were to emerge from those dark days to light up the third division with a brilliant promotion campaign. Borough's youngsters ran teams off their feet with an exciting brand of attacking football instilled in them by their ambitious manager and his first lieutenant, Colin Todd. Mere survival was forgotten as the march back to Division 2 became the priority. And when Borough took a point from their final battle against Wigan, that dream became reality. But even as Ayresome Park celebrated a triumph few would have dared predict just 9 months before, the club's top brass were already planning the strategy for their next conquest.
I think the club's geared for success, right from the boardroom, right down to the tea lady. And we'll approach next season with a positive attitude. And if we can get into winning ways, then there's no reason why we can't take the second division by storm, maybe.
Borough opened their assault on the second division with virtually the same team that had swept through the third. £25,000 bargain Dean Glover from Aston Villa was the only addition to a side facing up realistically to a whole new challenge.
Last season, with all the problems that we had, in many respects we continued early doors on a wave of emotion, and that continued through the season. That will have gone now because that's a year old. But I'm still confident that the players will do well in the second division.
That optimism must have been undermined by a worrying start of just 1 win in 5 league games. But Paul Kerr's winner at Villa Park showed Borough could compete with the best in the division. And when Gary Pallister put them on their way to a convincing win against another likely promotion contender, Leeds, the doubters were silenced. 2 months into the season, Borough were firmly established in the promotion pack, mainly thanks to a purple scoring patch from the man who terrorised defences ever since he'd arrived at Ayresome Park.
I got 2 hat-tricks in a month, I believe, and that was tremendous. But I knew that the goals would dry up, and I was set up for that. But the goals came back at the right time, the end of the season, when it mattered.
Slaven was to finish top scorer in both Borough's successful promotion campaigns, and he's confident of continuing his prolific exploits against the country's best defenders next season.
I believe I'll score a few in the first. I don't know how many, but I'll score a few anyway. I'll always chip in with a few goals.
Away form is the true test of any club's ambitions, and when Borough underlined their promotion credentials with a magnificent 14-match unbeaten run before Christmas, determined performances away from Ayresome Park were the cornerstone. Their miserly defence conceded just 6 goals in that time as Rioch's men capped an astonishing 1987 by reaching the very summit of Division 2. And they showed their resolve to stay on top when Gary Hamilton's goal set up victory in their last home game before Christmas. The competitive little Scot had forged an industrious partnership in the engine room of the side with another of Rioch's astute buys, Paul Kerr. But the pair insist that Borough couldn't have maintained their remarkable success on hard running alone.
We're a team that we pass the ball, and there's a lot of movement, we pass and move, but that means it's a good way of style instead of, like, no disrespect to the Wimbledon's moving. I mean, the style works for them, but we'd rather pass the ball and move. It's hard work, but it's enjoyable as well to play that kind of football.
I think every player in the team likes to play a bit of football. You get a lot of teams where maybe the 2 central defenders just boot it. We've got 2 central defenders here that we can go and get the ball off short. So everybody in the team's comfortable on the ball, and we've got a great team pattern and we all stick to it. Bruce has drummed it in the way we play, and it sticks. And if you go off the script, you're back on the training field working at it. And you don't have to be young to stick to it, really. We just listen to the manager.
So, offers in a bit of space there. Now calls for a good cross. He's got it as well, and it's a good header there. And Dave Watson. Floated in, and it's gone in, and it's Mowbray. Still Everton are back on their heels as Middlesbrough come in once more, and that time Kernigan almost got in there. Just a matter of seconds left now between this and such jubilation at Ayresome Park. Heath going in there, Trevor Stephen going in there, and Everton...
While their epic FA Cup battles with Everton brought Middlesbrough to national prominence, vital league points were proving hard to come by. By the time promotion rivals Bradford City came to Ayresome, Borough had won just twice in 8 games, and City striker Ian Ormondroyd was to pile on the New Year blues for Bruce Rioch. Ormondroyd's second after a fine run by John Hendry sent Borough down to 5th in the table, their lowest position since mid-October. During this shaky start to 88, Middlesbrough reserved their Sunday best for big occasions. ITV's Big Match Live was at Ayresome Park in mid-February for the 2nd Division's game of the season, Borough against Aston Villa. This Tony Daly goal kept Villa in the lead until 10 minutes from time.
These teams have already met 3 times this season in the league and 2 Littlewoods Cup ties, and each one of those matches has finished 1-0. Are we to have the 4th, or are we? Slaven. What a marvellous save, but Kernigan follows up, and Borough have equalised. Burke. This is Laws. Mowbray! It's the second goal for Middlesbrough, and the captain has scored it. And the fans who stayed loyal to the club, which almost died, have been rewarded with a terrific performance, full of guts and character, and summed up by that man. Stitches in his head, the disappointment of an own goal at Everton, which knocked his side out of the cup in midweek, but he's made of strong stuff, and he came back, Tony Mowbray, to score the winner.
Commentator Alan Parry had referred to Mowbray's face as belonging to a 1930s cigarette card. One fan invited Borough's inspirational 24-year-old skipper to compare notes with the real thing as he left for last Tuesday's civic reception. But even without a centre parting, Mowbray is set to take his place alongside legendary Middlesbrough names like Mannion and Hardwick.
It's in my blood now, sort of thing, and you know, you can't look to the future thinking when I'm 40, 50, finished playing football. Middlesbrough will still be deep in the blood, and I'll still be coming to Ayresome Park and watching football here. And it's just one of those things. Like I say, I've been here such a long time, and things to change round and do so well over the last 2 years, it's, you know, that pride's instilled again, and the whole area, everybody talks football. You go on a night and, you know, the lads and lasses are all walking on with smiles on their faces, and it's brilliant to see.
Tony Mowbray is like 50% of you, isn't he?
Oh yeah, it's all been a partnership with me and Tony. Tony's probably a more aggressive player than I am. He's the actual player who means more to the club, because he's as Bruce has said, he's the heart and soul of the place. He's a great leader, a great lad to know off the field, and he's been at this club 10 years, so he deserves every bit of success he's getting.
Such are Mowbray's leadership qualities, his manager went on record as saying he'd follow him to the moon. It's a sincere tribute, but Tony's had to take some stick from his teammates.
I said in the local press, I mean, the lads had played a lot of practical jokes and things like that about that, and every little bit of stick I get seems to be about going to the moon. And the jokes now, I mean, everybody says, oh, you'll be over the moon, and then they realise the pun afterwards, sort of thing. And so I'll, take a long time for that to die down, I think.
While Mowbray was off to the moon, his defensive other half, Gary Pallister, was about to see his own career take off. A cup goal at Sutton was the start of a memorable new year.
Pallister's goal!
But Pallister only became a Borough player thanks to Stockton businessman Dick Corden. Willie Madron had spotted the young centre-half playing for Billingham Town, but couldn't afford his wages.
He said, this guy will go all the way. He said he's got everything. I mean, obviously I couldn't see it at the time, but I'm not an expert, he is. And I said, well, he said, but there's no money in the club. And I said, well, if that's the only problem you've got, I said, I'll sort that out for you. And we agreed to pay his wages.
The investment finally brought an international dividend when Pallister made his England debut in Hungary. He nearly scored as well, with his naturally relaxed style immediately impressing. But this sudden impact at the highest level was to bring pressures he never expected.
Things were starting to get me because they were talking about big transfer fees. And obviously that doesn't settle you, because after 3 years, it was only a short space of time, and I couldn't believe they were talking like $1 million and whatever. So I think that did start to get me, and I played a couple of bad games. But eventually I sat down and had a talk with Bruce, and we managed to put things right, and eventually got back to playing at my best.
Pallister's best has alerted other managers apart from Bobby Robson, but now Borough too can offer the attraction of First Division football.
It's been a great 2 year, the promotion from the third and the promotion from the second. As long as I'm happy with the club are happy with me, there's no reason why I should want to move.
So that's the message to the fans that turned out today. You can forget Liverpool, I'm with the Borough.
I'm with the Borough, yeah.
Proof that Bruce Rioch intended to buy talent when necessary, not sell it, came in March when Trevor Senior moved from Watford. Up to then, Rioch's spending power had been extremely limited, but the £200,000 signing of a proven goalscorer was a sure indication that the club had turned the corner financially. No one was happier at Senior's arrival than leading scorer Bernie Slaven.
All the fans, everybody I was speaking to says you need a big man up front. And then we got Trevor, and since Trevor came, I've scored maybe 5 in the last 8 games. So great, he's helped me tremendous.
Following the relative slump in league fortunes during January and February, Borough then embarked on a 7-match unbeaten run, including this 2-0 win over bottom club Huddersfield. Dean Glover set them on the way with a penalty, and a moment of opportunism from Paul Kerr early in the second half made 3 points certain. By the visit of Manchester City 4 weeks later, Borough were back in second place, 1 point behind Millwall. Stuart Ripley, revelling in his central striker's role, kept the momentum going when he latched onto a stray back pass. And when City's defence failed to clear a corner soon after the interval, Gary Hamilton took full advantage with a well-directed header. For the second year running, Borough's young Braves were coping manfully with the pressures of the promotion race. Colin Cooper, capped for England under-21s, had an outstanding season at left-back, while Gary Parkinson on the right and Brian Laws, who'd overcome serious injury problems, took every opportunity to turn defence into attack. Behind them all was the player who could rightly claim to be king of the clean sheets, keeper Stephen Pears. In all, Pears kept the opposition scoreless 21 times in the league, a tribute to his reliability and consistency, even when things weren't going Borough's way.
It's not just down to me, it's down to the 10 in front of me. Really, people just talk about the back four, but you can't really say it's just the back four. It's the whole team, it's a team effort.
Pears' reputation, though, took a dent at Portman Road 2 weeks before the end of the season, when a certain Dalian Atkinson smashed an unstoppable hat-trick past Borough's renowned defence. Ipswich went on to win 4-0, the heaviest defeat in Bruce Rioch's 2-year reign. The following Saturday against Plymouth, though, there was the perfect opportunity for the Borough players to get that shattering scoreline out of their system.
Oh, that's a terrible mistake. And Ripley scores. A gift for Borough. He's still up there looking to get on the end of this one. And Cunningham challenging, and Cunningham scores. Cunningham was there, so too was Barker and Parkinson. And Brimacombe away, and Hamilton, the far one in, and Hamilton, that's a stunning goal from Gary Hamilton. Pallister got a little touch to it there, and they pulled one back, John Clayton.
That carelessly conceded goal was to prove very costly. Millwall and Bradford had both won convincingly, and with the promotion battle so tight, goal difference was sure to count. But Borough duly won at Barnsley on Bank Holiday Monday, and with Bradford losing at Villa Park, 3 points from the last game against Leicester would ensure their return to the top flight. No one at the club, though, was celebrating yet, and you could sense that Bruce Rioch was uneasy about accepting a special award for his achievements at the North East Player of the Year dinner. Leicester still had to be beaten.
Nobody's going to get excited at the football club because despite the fact that we've had a good season, at the end of the day we want to try and achieve something, but it hasn't been achieved just yet.
Rioch's caution was scarcely shared by the rest of Teesside. Tickets for the Leicester game were like gold dust. No one wanted to miss out on the big promotion party. Borough's best league crowd for more than 7 years, over 27,000 packed Ayresome Park, and had soon created a real carnival atmosphere. The stage was set for a memorable final performance. The trouble was, nobody had given Leicester a copy of the script.
Now McAllister with a good run forward from midfield. This is Peter Weir. Little touch from McAllister, it fell awkwardly, cross, and Peter Weir has scored for Leicester City. That's a body blow for Middlesbrough. McAllister now with a chance to run. McAllister, a superb goal by Gary McAllister. And another disaster for Middlesbrough. The travelling Leicester fans celebrate there in the far corner, but the rest of Ayresome Park stunned into silence. Mowbray forward, Hamilton is onside. They've got extra men here, Slaven in the middle, must score, Slaven has! Bernie Slaven pulls one back for Middlesbrough.
Slaven's goal was too late. Borough had frozen, and their dejected players trooped off to learn they'd missed promotion by the narrowest possible margin. Villa had sneaked in simply because they'd scored more goals. Borough were condemned to the agony of the playoffs. It was time for the General to rally his men.
They've had more disappointments, minor, major disappointments in the past 2 years than some players have in a whole career. And they've battled through that, you know, David, and they've got great character. I mean, I've been delighted, really delighted, and go on record as saying that with the efforts of the players over the past 2 seasons. They've been absolutely magnificent. And today, some of the lads run themselves into the ground, and most of them run themselves into the ground for the cause of Middlesbrough, and they've been brilliant. And I've just said to them, we'll all be disappointed this weekend, bitterly disappointed. The players, all the members of the staff of the club, supporters, and other people living far away. But when they come in on Monday, they come in ready for work.
He sort of comes up with speeches every now and then that are like a Winston Churchill speech sort of thing. You know, your hair stands up on the back of your neck and the lump comes in your throat and you think, right, this is it, we're going to make sure we get it right, you know. And sometimes you go out to play a game and you're going out at fever pitch, you know. I mean, they shall not pass sort of thing. So I mean, he hits the nail, you know, hits the nail right on the head sometimes, and for getting the lads going is fantastic.
A high noon shootout with Bradford City in front of a hostile Valley Parade crowd was Borough's daunting introduction to the playoffs. But Rioch's famous powers of motivation had instilled in his men a steely resolve to forget the Leicester debacle. With the playoffs over 2 legs, Borough at least had time to get the promotion bandwagon back on the rails. At Valley Parade, Carl Goddard finally broke their stubborn resistance. But within seconds, they'd again shown their remarkable spirit when Trevor Senior repaid a slice of his transfer fee with an instinctive header. Not even a controversial winner from City skipper Stuart McCall could shake the players' belief that they could finish the job at home, though not all had enjoyed their first taste of playoff football.
Well, you can't enjoy them. I mean, everybody feels for each other, the fans, ourselves. You just want to get through the game and get the result. And I wouldn't say I've enjoyed them. I look back and say I've enjoyed them, but I didn't enjoy the 4 games because there was so much dependent on them.
Ayresome Park was again packed for the return with Bradford 3 days later. This time, though, the fans weren't to be disappointed.
Senior used his height well there, and a slip. And Ripley inside the area. Tomlinson, Slaven's there! Bernie Slaven scores for Middlesbrough. Hooper's cross. Oh, and Sinnott's missed it. There's a real chance here for Hamilton.
It had been one of North East football's great nights. Borough were in the final of the playoffs, and no one who'd witnessed these emotional scenes could doubt they really were destined to go all the way. Chelsea, fighting for their First Division lives, were all that barred Borough's path back to the top flight. They demolished Blackburn in their playoff, but Borough were not to be denied now. They successfully defended a 2-goal lead from the first leg at home, though their travelling fans were more concerned with protecting themselves against the worst excesses of Stamford Bridge's infamous hooligan army. But not even these disgraceful scenes could mar the historic day. Borough were back, and for Rioch and his team, it was a moment to savour.
He is, I believe, a brilliant man-manager. I think he's obviously got all the business qualities that are needed to be a manager of a football club. He's a motivator. He's got a caring attitude for his players, and he just develops relationships with people which brings out the best in them.
Looking back, I mean, talking to local pressmen, and they were saying it's probably the most historic season ever in Middlesbrough Football Club's history, I think. And that little twist at the end with the playoffs and everything's just made it that bit more exciting and a bit more sweeter really at the end.
Not that the last chapter of the story has been written yet. Borough's young team will step into Division 1 without fear. They've already earned the respect of the country's top clubs, who form a powerful welcoming committee next season.
I think Bruce and Colin have been around a bit and they know what the First Division is all about. It's just getting it through to the players. They've got a lot of young players, but who hasn't? We've got a few young ones ourselves, and we've got over it. So I can't see any reason why they can't. They play the type of football that will attract people. They like to attack, score a few goals, and don't concede many, which is very important in the First Division.
The first got about 6 outstanding teams, the rest are like mediocre teams. And we've been together now 2 years, and I think we'll do well.
People laughed 2 years ago if you'd have said we'd be in the First Division, coming through liquidation like we did. And who knows that in 2 years' time we might not be league champions, First Division. It might be laughable now, but we'll see in 2 years.
Well, I'll be surprised if we don't win the league. I've had a few quid on us, and probably the double.
We are men of iron, we are men of steel. Wrestle with the lion, and we'll show you what we mean. Ready for melted iron, white hot melting steel. Pounding down the line like a locomotive wheel.
But they first of all had their beer, and then it was followed by the champagne that Chelsea had actually got in for themselves, which they didn't need. And then there was a programme for going home, and Bruce asked his players what they wanted to do, and I'm sure at that stage they could have had anything. And they were absolutely unanimous. They wanted to stop at the first fish and chip shop. And as they were sitting eating their fish and chips on the pavement, all the Borough fans who were coming back from Chelsea were stopping and cheering them and having a word with them and sharing the fish and chips. Absolutely tremendous. That experience would describe Middlesbrough Football Club better than 100 textbooks.